Hey everybody, this is Tatiana Moroz, and I'm broadcasting to you from dark and steamy New Jersey. It's Wednesday night, June 18th, and I'm really excited to be doing this special edition of the exploration of Tatiana Coin because this time I'm joined with Bob Murphy. Everybody knows him, world's funniest economist, amazing karaoke maestro. Um, and then Steven from Amagi Metals, which does, I don't know, metal stuff and also takes Bitcoin. So already like two winning combinations. And what I thought that we could talk about today was Austrian economics in relation to Bitcoin, Tatiana Coin, and since Steven takes Bitcoin and also sells silver and gold, we could kind of talk about those relationships there too. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
for having us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Cool. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about how each of you got into Bitcoin? Bob, Tatiana.
Okay, well, with me, it was more, I'd heard of it, and it just was an interesting theoretical concept. Just as an economist, it was interesting to study it and to figure out how it worked, but I didn't really think much of it, and it was more that just, as goofy as it sounds, like a lot of people that I was friends with on social networks, just more and more of them were using it, and they were going to it, and this is going to sound contrived, but it was Tatiana, because you told me one of the conferences where we were, you said, you have to go to a Bitcoin conference. The people there, it's like a different culture. They're actually happy and optimistic about the future, which was not, the standard libertarian events that I was going to. It was like real, morose, and everyone was real dumb. Like we know that the country's ruined, but that's kind of depressing that we know, they had no real optimism, and you told me to go to that, and so yeah, I went to the Texas Bitcoin conference, and that really, for me, was when I saw it all and saw how much activity there was, and that, my goodness, there's all these people doing all different things. That's exactly what you would expect from the liberty movement to be doing, is to have 1,000 people doing 1,000 different tweaks and trying their new activities. So that's, for me, that's what, like, again, rekindled my interest in it. And then I was looking at it theoretically, and then maybe in a little bit we can talk about. The thing is, all the criticism I was seeing, the more I was looking at it, the less sense it made, and so that made me more open-minded to it. That the people who were allegedly just destroying Bitcoin theoretically using Austrian economics, it didn't seem like they were making a compelling case. So that made me sort of sympathetic to it.
Can you explain to people like that are not economists? Say that you have people at home that, I don't know, haven't read every book in the world. How would you explain to like a fourth grader why Bitcoin does work versus why doesn't it work? Like what was the criticism from that Austrian school?
Okay, yeah, sure. And just on the off chance that some people don't know what that is, so the Austrian School of Economics, that's just a name for a branch or a school of a type of approach to economics, just like there's the Keynesian school or the Chicago school. And it's just called that because the founders were from Austria. Imagine that. What a coincidence. So that's where the name comes from. And a lot of free market libertarian people like Austrian economics because the two do dovetail nicely. That in the neutral Austrian framework, not smuggling in value judgments, just looking at how does the world work. The things we think of as problems, like high unemployment, why is there the business cycle, price inflation, why do currencies crash and things like that. The Austrians typically trace that stuff to government intervention. So if you're a libertarian who doesn't like government intervention on principled moral grounds, it makes sense that you're gonna have a kindred spirit with an Austrian economist. So that, now as far as Bitcoin though, ironically you might think Austrian economists would love Bitcoin because it's a voluntary market produced thing. The problem, or the stumbling block for a lot of them though, and I'll try to keep this real brief, make it intuitive. The way Austrian economists explain the origin of money, they trace it all the way back historically to when there was just barter. And they say, well, back then people were using goods and services just for their direct use. So you would accept something in trade because you were going to eat it or use it yourself to produce something. And that's how was how they built up their theoretical explanation of the origin of money. and this economist Ludwig von Mises was instrumental in the history of economic thought to just explaining how that worked. All right, so long story short, it was a crucial link in the standard Austrian explanation for where do we get money from, that historically there must have been a period before money where everything was valued directly in barter. And so the apparent problem or the stumbling block is with Bitcoin, it's not obvious that people were using Bitcoin, to fix their car or to put in a sandwich, and then one day they realized, oh, and we can use this as a form of money too. How about that? Obviously, Bitcoin was designed from day one to serve as a medium of exchange or money. And so that's the problem for a lot of Austrians, is it looks like if Bitcoin works, the way they used to explain stuff theoretically, at best, was sort of missing something, and at worst was just wrong. And so that's the apparent problem. That's why a lot of them are uncomfortable with Bitcoin and think something's fishy about it.
So how does that fit in? For example, I was talking about Bitcoin to a friend of mine who's from Nigeria, and he said that they used to have something called, I think the word is cowrie, and they would use the shells because everybody agreed to shells being acceptable. How does that fit in with what you're talking about? Because I guess the original thing is oh, well, silver, you can use it for stuff, and people like it, and you have to mine it and stuff, so that makes it valuable. What about shells? Like, how do they fit in? Because I don't think that they would be in that same category. Wouldn't they be more like a Bitcoin?
Okay, I don't. Maybe Steven knows. I don't know exactly what. I mean, I know what you're talking. I've heard people talking about cowrie shells. I don't know that. I don't know if they were valued for ornamental purposes or like if they had religious significance or for some reason like that. So I'm not sure. But the specific problem with and how does gold and silver fit into it? The idea was if we're all on a tropical island somewhere and no one's using dollar bills anymore, and we start from scratch, the idea is, well, we couldn't just pick up any random thing and just say, hey, everyone, let's use this as money, because we wouldn't know what its purchasing power was. Like if we just grabbed shells off the beach and said, hey, everyone, let's use this as money, you say, okay, but does one of those shells buy you 10 hours of labor or 100 hours of, we wouldn't know. And so the idea was you need the barter experience to get a rough idea of what does one thing trade for another. Like, one apple trades for 10 oranges originally just because people like apples more. That kind of like they taste better or whatever. And then once you have that foundation, then you can sort of build on that and then get an idea of, well, okay, gold and silver, we like to make jewelry. So that's the idea. So the apparent problem with Bitcoin was, how do you know what it's worth? What's its purchasing power? And so just to not leave your listeners hanging, my answer to that is, well, you're right. I don't have a good story. And if you had asked me before Bitcoin took off, what should its purchasing power be? I don't know. But the point is, it did take off, and now we do have a reference. We can go look up its price online. So, the idea, it's almost like the Austrians are saying, no, it's impossible. We can't be valuing it right now because how did we ever get it going? Well, we did. I don't know how they did it, but it did happen. They were, trading Bitcoin for pizza originally. And how did those first trades happen? I don't know. We could track those people down and ask them. They're probably still alive. So, so that's the thing. It's almost like the Austrians who have a problem can't theoretically explain something that we know did happen. It's like if somebody said, going to the moon is impossible, so therefore, that didn't happen. And, so that's, and we have plenty of libertarians who say it didn't happen. So there you go.
Okay.
I mean, I like to use the analogy that just like people have division of labor and specialization, so can goods. And Bitcoin is just making money a little bit better, the division of labor for money. And who knows, down the road, gold and silver may no longer be used as money. Right now, over 50% of gold is used for jewelry. So if that were the case, then the price of gold could drop and be used for industry and other things rather than as a preservation of wealth, and leave Bitcoin to a transfer of wealth or a storage of wealth in the future.
Hey, Stephen, can you tell everybody a little bit about how you came to have your company and at what point you decided to incorporate Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I first heard about Bitcoin in probably late 2010 and early 2011, and we actually made a custom gold round for somebody who was trying to sell them for Bitcoin. Once we made those custom gold rounds, I just didn't really know too much about Bitcoin at that time. But the same person and a friend I went to college with told me more about Bitcoin and said, hey, you should accept it. And so I did a lot of research and instantly fell in love with the idea after doing research, and got really eager to start accepting it. Came across BitPay, and it took about 10 minutes to activate it, and it was almost like an on switch, and we started accepting Bitcoin. And initially, it didn't really do much for us. We just started getting little orders, and then the Bitcoin orders started to grow, and then we started doing $1 million a month in Bitcoin sales, which put us as the largest Bitcoin retailer in the world for a short period of time, until companies like Gift and Overstock.com started accepting Bitcoin.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
So people can just, why would they want to, so they just go to you and they give you their dollars and you give them Bitcoin?
Oh, no. Oh, so, sorry.
Or they want to buy gold from you with Bitcoin?
Yeah, so we sell precious metals, gold, silver, and platinum to people, investors, and institutions all over the world. And we're mostly e-commerce, which makes it great for Bitcoin, especially for international orders. And yeah, so people send us Bitcoins and we send them the gold or silver. We also buy gold and silver with Bitcoin from customers. However, because of so many government regulations, we cannot buy or sell Bitcoins to the public. I'd love to be able to do that, but for us to become a full MSB, we have to spend $75 million. And I mean, look at that barrier to entry.
I'm really glad that they're protecting us.
Oh, yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was large banking institutions that lobbied to have that legislation in place to prevent companies like me from being able to make more money by buying and selling Bitcoin. So it's another government intervention.
So what are your thoughts, guys? Obviously, you know, we all agree that there has to be some amount of government. But what's your thoughts on Bitcoin regulation? Like, do you think that it has a place for it? Where, you know, how do you handle that?
Bitcoin's being regulated every day by the free market. That's the only regulation it needs.
Well, what about the government regulation? I mean, like, can we avoid that? I don't think it's possible. I think a lot of people turn to Bitcoin because they want to get out of the system, but I think the system's trying to get in on it.
I would say the government has done too little too late. If it wanted to start regulating Bitcoin, it should have done that 4 years ago. But the cat's out of the bag. Luckily, I don't think it's possible for the government to say, okay, Bitcoin's banned or cryptocurrency is banned, because that would cause huge issues in the United States and just push their system more out of the way and make Bitcoin more viable down the road when it just becomes a better option. So I think that they're stuck in a corner right now. They can start regulating Bitcoin. They can start regulating the financial industry more, but I think every time they do that, they're just going to price themselves out of the market and make just the regular service or business owner want to choose Bitcoin over the U.S. dollar. It just makes more sense to do that. So, of course, regulation is going to come down the road, but I think they're way too late with what's going on now.
Yes, as far my take on that is, and Stephen, obviously, since it's directly his business, would know the particular regulations and how they affect merchants, processing and what the paperwork. So they can the government can certainly make it so that brick and mortar retailers and large corporations, things that have to stay on good terms with the government, they can certainly regulate them, but they're not going to be able to stamp out the use of Bitcoin. Just like they can't stop people from smoking marijuana, they can they can keep Walgreens from selling it on aisle 8, but they can't stop people from using marijuana. You know, same thing with Bitcoin. They can make it so you can't just get it at Citibank, but they can't stop people from using it. But the one thing that's really good is, or one of the things that's great, is no matter what they do, they can't inflate it. And so that's really, to me, the thing so there's going to be this currency, cryptocurrency, that it mathematically is guaranteed that it can't be inflated, and governments, they can't alter that. I mean, they can chop your head off if they catch you using it, but they can't inflate it, they can't debase it, and that's really something that's what's, to me, so fascinating about cryptocurrency in general. I mean, even gold and silver, which a lot of people think of as the hard money, the epitome of hard money. Well, no, technically they could hit the mother lode somewhere and find so much gold and silver that they become as plentiful as copper, or like an asteroid could come down that has a bunch of, or they could, do the Star Trek technology where they can, go to the computer and say, make me an Earl Grey tea, and it just appears.
World.
You know what I mean? They could do something like that. So even hard money, and that's tangible physical matter, eventually they're going to be able to produce that at will. And so it's interesting to know, well, we still have something that's guaranteed to be scarce mathematically. So that's, to me, that's what's so interesting about Bitcoin or things like it.
So the interesting thing about that is that there aren't many developers. There's something like 100 Bitcoin developers. 5 of them are producing something like 75% of the code. And that I always found interesting, because what if government employees started writing code for Bitcoin or became one of those 5 main developers? But even if that were the case, since Bitcoin is a global currency, and most Bitcoins are outside the United States, and most of the miners that are outside the United States, they would need to get approval of all the 51%. And of course, since most people are outside the U.S., they wouldn't approve of some kind of manipulation from the U.S. government.
Okay, so what do you guys think about this? Is there a way? Okay, so let's play that the U.S. government isn't our enemy, and they're just bumbling around and they're making some mistakes. They really have our best interests in mind. They've been doing Keynesian economics all along.
It's a fairy tale. Okay.
Is there a way that they could even reverse their position and start being like, oh yeah, we're totally cool with Bitcoin, we're going to use it too, and is there a way that they can actually embrace it and maybe make themselves a little bit more relevant, which I think that part of Bitcoin and just going off the grid and this decentralization of everything is to just make these kinds of old institutions relevant. Is there a reason why they should play nice in order to preserve themselves, and could they even, considering their previous positions on money in general?
I would say absolutely. Sorry to butt in, but I think that with the best thing that happened to the dollar was Bitcoin, because now with more competitive currencies that people trust, and they trust Bitcoin a lot more than the dollar and other fiat currencies, it will push at least one other country, maybe it's the US, maybe it's China, maybe it's Japan, to start changing their policies, their foreign and domestic policies, so that they make their currency more competitive. And I don't think it'll ever be as trusted as Bitcoin, but for a short period of time in the future, I think they'll be trying to push their currency by reducing welfare, reducing war, reducing inflation, to make it more competitive to cryptocurrency. So I definitely think that that's a possibility in the future. Of course, they also have to overcome the huge bureaucratic leviathan to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think I generally agree with Stephen's take on it, that in a certain sense, governments would have liked it to not have the printing press, because that's a very subversive thing for people to be able to cranking out books. But they can't stop that, and so instead, where they try to co-opt it and say, okay, well, let's make sure that kids go to schools and read textbooks that are printed or written by people we approve of. So I think it's the same thing, that they may try to fight it for a while, but some country somewhere is going to let their people use Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency that replaces it, because it's better in some respects. And I think at some point they're just going to give up and just realize we can't stop this. Let's just figure out how are we going to tax it? So that to me, that's the route they're going to take. They might try to fight it head on at first, but I think that it's just going to, they're going to realize we can't do that. Instead, let's just put in place things so that people declare it on their IRS reports and whatever, and we get a piece of the action. And like Steven's saying, I mean, it doesn't help the governments if all the major currencies crash either. You know what I mean? Because it leads to chaos. So it's, I think that they almost might like it, the fact that they have this backup thing there that technically even governments could use. Think about it. If you're some, other country who had your currency tied to the dollar, you're not in a very good position right now. And so I think actually people around the world might be breathing a sigh of relief that, okay, there's this thing that came out that we can, use and that provides something stable.
What do you guys think is the ability, like, all right, Bob, like among other economists and more like old school Mises guys, are they kind of coming around to the Bitcoin thing? And Steven, like, were your clients originally kind of anti-Bitcoin? How has the adoption been going, and what do you think has been the best way to get people on board?
Okay, and I think with a lot of the stuff that you see when there's fights on the internet, it appears that there's bigger divisions than there really are. Like, so there, if you just read internet debates, it looks like there's this huge chasm, and there's this one group. I think most people are intrigued by it. Like, most people that are Austrian friendly and libertarian in their political views, I think they like the promise of Bitcoin. Like they all agree this would be great if it could do the stuff that its boosters are saying, but they're also real cynical. You know what I mean? They don't like fads, and so they don't want to be taken in, and then the thing doesn't work. And the huge problem is a lot of people don't understand it, myself included. There's things I don't know, and so when you have these, like the Mt. Gox thing, when that story breaks, people who were sort of getting interested all of a sudden are like, whoa, I didn't even know that was on the radar. I didn't even know that was possible. And of course, as Steven knows too, that wasn't a flaw with the design of Bitcoin per se. That was just what Mt. Gox was doing. And that's like, if somebody robbed a bank at gunpoint, that doesn't prove that paper money is bad, even though paper money is bad for a different reason. So, anyway, I'm just saying that kind of stuff. I think it's making people keep it at arm's length because they really don't understand it. But as time passes and more people are using it, and it just becomes a fact of life, then I think they'll start to embrace. And certainly the apparently theoretical arguments about why this can't ever possibly be a money. Well, if people are still using it 20 years from now, that's not going to be a very strong argument anymore. So that real hostile rejection of it outright, saying no, this just doesn't make any sense from ground zero, I think that is certainly going to fade away over time if people keep using it.
Yeah, so from my perspective, we've always had a very strong, solid base of customers, and that's in the entire industry. And it's usually old males, wealthy old males, not always college educated, but usually business owners, very wealthy. They don't trust banks. They rely on themselves for their finances. They're probably debt-free. And so, and people, there's all kinds of names for them, gold bugs, and there are some other names for them. But those people a year ago were extremely skeptical about Bitcoin, and they were very unhappy with my company for accepting Bitcoin. They started saying, "Oh, we're not going to do business with a company that accepts zeros and ones," and just making fun of us for accepting Bitcoin and talking about how it can't be touched, so it can't be trusted. But at the same time, we started to receive a huge influx of very young investors, and these are and that mostly brought about through Bitcoin and the Liberty movement. But it was really interesting that we started to have two very distinct groups of customers, and the gold bugs really did not like that we accepted Bitcoin, didn't really like the younger crowd, and that has changed a lot in the last year. It's almost done a 180, where now people who the old gold bugs love Bitcoin. They love our company for accepting Bitcoin, and they've kind of started to change their mindset. There are still a few people who are stubborn, and I think it's because they don't want to admit that they were wrong. And a couple are like Peter Schiff and Chris Dwayne, who say, oh, Bitcoin has intrinsic value, but as we all know, value is not intrinsic. So, and that's a huge misconception that a lot of gold bugs have had, but it's something that we've been working on to educate people and explain. You know, communism was based on the labor theory of value, which is based on intrinsic value. You know, these people are talking about how amazing capitalism is, but value is intrinsic. I don't you know, it's just a disconnect there. So we started to see a big change, and people are a lot more receptive. People in the gold and silver industry are a lot more receptive to cryptocurrency. And actually, I'm speaking at the Chicago's World Fair of Money, which is mostly a precious metals event in Chicago, and I'll be talking about cryptocurrency. What's that? It's the Chicago World's Fair of Money, and it's hosted by the American Numismatic Association, and it's usually a bunch of coin dealers that have tables that people can make purchases, and there's speakers, and it's mostly to the gold bug and the precious metals community, but I'm going to be speaking there about cryptocurrency, and they're very receptive of it. So it's really good to see that people are shifting their train of thought.
I think there's a lot of very, very quick shifts. You know, it's just the whole space is like rolling over and over again. When I did Tatiana Coin, when they told me about that, I mean, I had only heard of like that kind of Bitcoin 2.0 concept a month before, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And here it is, just a few months later, and not only do I have my own coin, but I'm trying to think of new ways how to coin other people. And I don't know, it's really cool. And all the different people that are getting into the space, each time somebody comes in, they have this new, really unique, cool thing that they're contributing. Very similar, in my opinion, to how it was with the Ron Paul movement, where everybody was mobilizing, and each person was giving whatever it was that they were really passionate about to the project and making it more full and rounded. And that kind of community growth I see happening in Bitcoin exponentially. So it's fun stuff.
Is this a good, appropriate time for you? Because I know there are people watching this since, you know, they know I'm doing this thing, but they don't know what Tatiana Coin is.
Oh, they don't? Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I lob you a softball and have you, you know, so now you don't feel embarrassed that I'm forcing you to answer the question?
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. So what Tatiana Coin is it's built on the Bitcoin protocol because of Counterparty. So Counterparty built this thing on top of Bitcoin, and they're making these like secondary kind of coins, right? They're called meta coins. Man, I hope I'm going to butcher this explanation, so we'll stay away from the technical stuff. Basically, Tatiana Coin, we're doing a crowd sale of my actual coins. So those coins are almost like little tokens that you can redeem in my store, and they get their value whenever I create something, because then those coins can be used to get those items. And the theory is that the people who give me the money in the beginning, right, they help me raise, let's say, $25,000, which is our first tier, in order to help me make an album, right? Well, when I make that album, all of a sudden those tokens, they can trade them in for the album, they could trade them in to go backstage at a concert, they could trade them in to hang out with me at like a conference or different kinds of perk things. But the hope is that since these people now, they didn't just get a stupid t-shirt and forget about the campaign. Like, they're going to be watching what I'm doing, because now they're waiting to see, well, is the value of my token going to go up? And they have this interest in telling other people about it, because they want more people to want the Tatiana coins, so then they could trade their Tatiana coins for other things. It could be for other meta coins, it could be for Bitcoin, it could be for goods and services. I mean, like, eventually I'm thinking that there will be a whole other, like, millions and millions of personalized coins where people are trading them. But this is just the first one. And we thought that, like, this simple model of keeping it sort of like an Indiegogo that people already know what that is. People already know how to fundraise for an album, but this time they're just getting a lot more for their buck, and I'm getting a a lifetime relationship with whoever holds my coins. So it's not just a fan club, it's like, it's a collaborative effort, and I think that people are going to respond to that, and I think it's,
can I ask you, is it like it's combining, like you say, like a crowdsourcing fundraising thing for a specific product, but then it's also like an IPO, like you're selling stock in the future of your musical career, and so people who think, oh, she's going to be big, much bigger in the future, get in right now?
yes, except that it's not an IPO because I'm not guaranteeing them anything. Like right now, all they can do is like take those, why is this thing starting here? What did happen?
Oh.
Weird thing that like stopped us, or stopped my flow. So anyway, Stephen, why are you taking pictures in the middle of this thing? You're so confusing. What was I saying? Okay, so it's not an IPO because I'm not guaranteeing them anything. I'm not saying you own a piece of me forever. You own the ability to use your coins in my store. And then hopefully, if like somebody has a Tatiana coin, right, and they've also got a Bob coin, but they don't really want their Tatiana coin, they want the next Bob Murphy book, they could trade a Tatiana coin to a Bob coin person, and then that, you know what I mean? So it's almost like this new barter system that's going to be building into this other economy where everybody's kind of competing. So I don't know what it's going to end up looking like, but the point is that they're getting something where they have like a more long-term investment that has a lot more flexibility. You're not getting a stupid t-shirt, you're getting a tradable item.
Right.
So it's like baseball cards. So if you buy a Tatiana coin, just like you'd buy a baseball card, you hope that if, I hit a home run, then you'll be able to sell my baseball card or my CD or my coin for more money later on.
Well, yeah. I mean, besides the fact that obviously I want your specific career to do well, I'm just curious to see how this plays out, because it's, like you say, it's this thing is wide open, and there's going to be people are going to stumble around a bit and make some missteps, but that's what you would expect from a brand new technology.
Yeah, I think it's just the beginning, and I think that starting it off with, because you have to even think about it. I mean, are regulators going to look at this and have some big problem with it? That's why testing it with an artist, it's like, look, guys, I'm not running off to Acapulco and, going to run some big scam. I mean, I'm just going to make music with the money, and people are not going to be super pissed if I don't make, $9 million off of my next record. Nobody's going to be knocking at my door being like, I want my $20 back of Tatiana Coin. So it's still like a safe environment to make that experiment happen. But is that something that, do you think that could eventually hold, like, is there some sort of like Austrian economical perspective that would vote on whether or not this would work or why it would work? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's an interesting way of raising capital for what you're doing, and it's, like I say, it's to allow people who, I mean, yeah, if you want me to throw big words around, it's like a derivative on Tatiana, like a call option on Tatiana, so that, yeah, if I...
Like, it's a legit thing. It's not like something that I just made up. Like, it seems like it might actually end up working.
So would you say that it's backed by your talent?
It's backed by my content, so there's no mining. It's like every time I make a new piece of content, it becomes more, I don't know, like there'll hopefully be more people that want it, right? Yeah.
Right, yeah. So you're offering, so here's it, yeah, you're offering the stuff and announcing this thing is going to, this would take so many Tatiana coins, this other thing takes more, so they know they can ultimately redeem them at your store for Tatiana memorabilia or whatever you want, merchandise.
Yeah.
But because of that, then in the general community, those things might have value anyway, so people could trade them for other stuff. You don't have any control over how much a Tatiana coin, how many loaves of bread it gets out in the marketplace, but you can control, your next CD, how many Tatiana coins that goes for. Is that what I just said true? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And like for me, it's more important to even be able to make those things happen in the first place. And then regular people who didn't know about Tatiana Coin, they can still buy it in the store, but they'll get it a lot later. It won't be like the special thing. I like making the special stuff. Like I've been talking about this all day today because I've been reflecting and whatever. And I was just thinking, you know, I'm making so much more content now that I'm doing the coin. Every single day I want to have some sort of an update to post on my page. So if it's a video blog or if it's a written thing or if it's a song performance or if it's a I'm not feeling well, complaining, like whatever it is, I have a better relationship with my fans now, and I'm making new fans in a unique way.
Right.
I also like you brought up that individuals can essentially vote for things that they like or things that they want to see more of or hear more of in the future. So, but, you know, people are voting with their money now with Tatiana Coin.
Yeah, well, I think that that's what we're always doing with our money, even without Tatiana Coin. You know, when anytime our money is used, it's like sort of like a vote. So yeah, I like that we're taking back the power, 1 0 and 1 0 and 1 after another. You know.
And also, you have a much better.
Are they like that same? Is that how it's? I don't know that sort of thing. Sorry.
Yeah. You have a much better first name for it. Like Bob Coin or Stephen Coin would be kind of more Tatiana Coin. That kind of has a nice ring to it.
Well, you know what I was thinking would be really cool is if you guys know how I have Same Side, which is like the Libertarian Talent Agency. There's like maybe 70 or 80 activists and talents or whatever on there. I'd like to make a Same Side coin and then maybe have it where people would contribute and they could vote which talent they want that Same Side coin to go toward, you know what I mean, to support people. So I definitely think Tatiana Coin's the first of like many generations of building business structures in this way.
Yeah, you said that Tatiana Coin is the first artist coin, which is amazing that Bitcoin has allowed for so many firsts. You know, you were the first person to do that. Now, if thousands of artist coins come down the road, you know, they can never be the first. And people always say, oh, there's the blockchain that was dropped into the internet in 2008. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I want to create a term like pre and post blockchain, because I think that it was an important point in human history. So I don't really want to say post-blockchain because that seems like after it, not during, which of course we have now. So I'm just trying to find a good way to explain.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if you said pre-BC or BC, that would be confusing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I don't know. Maybe you guys can think of something or help me out. Find a good term to pinpoint the time that the blockchain was dropped onto the internet.
Well, I imagine future historians are going to date it by the introduction of Tatiana Coin.
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation. I knew there was a reason why we had this to just make these kinds of predictions.
It could be, TC and pre-TC. So.
There you go. Perfect.
Right now we're in the year 1 TC.
Yeah.
Yes, it just started very shortly, so it's like we all just got younger. So, where am I going to see you guys next? Bob, I'm seeing you in Porcfest, right?
So do I need to pay you to hang out with you? Is that what's the...
Yes, we have very high costs. No, you don't have to pay me to hang out.
I'll give you some Bob coin.
Okay.
I'm going to Freedom Fest and going to the Bitcoin conference in Chicago in July.
Oh, very cool. Bob, what about you? What are you doing?
I'm going to be at, so there's Porcfest, and then I'm also going to be at Freedom Fest, and then I should mention, my business partner will kill me, that Tatiana, everybody's coming to Nashville. That's on August 15th and 16th. Nightofclarity.com is where you go get that. Tom Woods, David Stockman. It's going to be great. So come to Nashville, everybody.
I am so excited about going down to Nashville. I'm hoping me and Steven were talking with Liberty on the Rocks
Okay.
about maybe doing some fun stuff down there, just in the South. I want to grab Josie and just drag her around with me and cause some trouble, but that won't be at the Night of Clarity.
Well, Stephen, can I ask you then? So, how are you like in terms of the compliance and stuff? I mean, is it the kind of thing where it's just another form of an asset class, and you just got to report it to the government, and that's they've kind of accepted that they're not going to stamp this out.
Yeah, so we don't have to become an MSB, money service business. As a precious metals dealer, we do have to have AML and KYC policies in place. They have not made
anti-money laundering. What's the second one you said?
Know your customer.
Okay.
Yeah, so they usually go hand in hand. So they have not determined that Bitcoin is considered cash or cash equivalent, where we have to fill out the exact same like IRS forms. So it's really, as you said, just another asset. Of course, we have to pay taxes on it if we spend them or use them in any way, and we have to mark every single transaction as a gain or a loss, which can be a hassle. But right now, we haven't come across any regulations. Nobody's approached us about any. So I'm so grateful that we have this huge bureaucratic machine, because it's just taking so long, and the longer it takes for them to figure it out, the better off we all are.
Tatiana, can I ask him a fairly technical question? Is that okay?
Sure, yeah, I think so. Not everybody's as close as I am. They might have an interest in that.
And I'll try not to leave the average list. Okay, so Stephen, there was a ruling a while ago that the IRS or whoever said, my understanding was they were saying Bitcoin is not fungible. That in other words, you got to keep track of the exact, like the specific Bitcoin. So if you accepted Bitcoin 6 months ago and then you used it again, it wasn't just the in and out. It was like you had to track each one to see was there a capital gain on that particular unit of Bitcoin, whatever. And people were saying, so that's the end of Bitcoin. That's going to be an administrative nightmare. So I was wondering, is that how they do it with gold and silver, or is that not true?
Yes. So they see it as property in the same way with gold and silver. The only difference is that it's a lot easier for someone to buy and sell gold and silver and nobody knowing about it or not having to report it. Whereas Bitcoin, it has a ledger, it has a record that anyone can look at. So I would say everyone should, pay their taxes, because so you don't go to jail. But of course, not everyone does, and it's a lot easier to be able to, I think, hide your wealth if you with gold and silver than with Bitcoin right now. And that's only for large amounts of Bitcoin or gold, so millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin or millions of dollars worth of gold. So the benefit, though, so if you use the blockchain for transactions, you can put a note in every single transaction. So if you just start writing a little note out and you want to pay taxes, then it takes 2 seconds to do so. It actually doesn't take that much time. They said that, it's going to be such a burden, but for our company, we haven't found that to be the case yet. But of course, a lot of people aren't paying taxes on it, and hopefully they never get caught. But
Okay. Let me paraphrase what you just said, because I want to make sure I got it.
Yeah.
So you're saying what the ruling was about Bitcoin is just as applicable to gold and silver. So if you've got gold guys running around, which I saw when that ruling came out, saying, "Aha! See, we told you, Bitcoin's stupid." They're being silly because the alleged problem with Bitcoin has always applied to gold and silver, at least since it stopped being official money. Okay, but what you're saying though is, in fairness to them, if you wanted to just not obey that law, and technically you're leaving yourself open to get audited, you could be in big trouble.
Yeah.
Technically, you're more likely to be able to get away with it with gold and silver. But in terms of the law and the requirements, and finally, is this one, you didn't say it, but is this true that given that you were going to be in compliance with that rule, it would be easier to do it with Bitcoin since it's already coded and it's easier to track that stuff?
Yeah. So I said it's really easy, but I should take that back because I'm thinking more of very large transactions. When you start thinking of micropayments, you just start sending pennies, you start tipping people, then I can see it becoming a big hassle.
But by the same token, if you at a restaurant were going to start leaving little gold
Yeah,
dust,
yeah, exactly.
so
Yeah.
I want the critics to be consistent. That's kind of what I was saying, Tatiana, when I first got into this. The people attacking Bitcoin were using arguments that would also, prove that gold isn't a good money, and these people were gold bugs. So I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. So.
Yeah, but like I said, or as you said, it's a lot easier for someone with gold and because there's no history, there's no record of you doing that with gold and silver. So, any other technical questions?
Well, can I ask him another one? I don't want to hijack the show here, but well, I got you. So can you explain it? Because I think there's some confusion that on the one hand, it originally, like the 30,000-foot view, the appeal of Bitcoin was, oh, it's so anonymous, and you don't have to use your name, and you're sending money, and they don't know who you are, and no one knows how much you have because you could have 16,000 different accounts. But yet now you're saying, oh, well, it would be easier for them to track Bitcoin. So can you just explain that?
Yeah. So, and like I said before, I was thinking more of very large transactions. So if you look, I don't know the exact numbers, but something like 100 people own half the Bitcoins in the world. So if one of those 100 people, the government probably watches all of those Bitcoin accounts and knows who probably half or more of them who own them. So those people are pretty much any movement that they make will be audited sometime in the future. For businesses, I can see the IRS saying, okay, you have to show me what every single Bitcoin transaction went to and why. I can see the IRS auditing that down the road. So as we all know, Bitcoin is a public ledger where everyone can see every single Bitcoin transaction since the beginning of time. So for businesses that want to have bank accounts that are forced to have their money stolen in the form of taxes, they have if those businesses start accepting Bitcoin, then it would be very easy for the IRS to approach them and say, hey, show us all the transactions, where did they go? And they can eventually put together a maybe not a full picture, but a picture of where some or a lot of Bitcoins are going and coming. So, and that's right now, and I think the main reason why is because Bitcoin is it's not as diverse or as separated as what's the right word, dispersed as we'd like it to be. So I think as it becomes more and more dispersed, then it will become more and more difficult to follow, especially with things like dark wallet coming out and people caring more and more about their privacy. But I've read that even with using Tor, having your Bitcoin wallet on your computer, it's possible for someone to find out your IP address, and once they find out your IP address, they know who you are, and so they know your Bitcoin address, your Bitcoin wallet, essentially. So people who use the darknet for drugs and all that kind of stuff, they have all kinds of extra security measures that they go through, like they connect through Tor, through another VPN, and they're very careful, some of them, to protect or hide their Bitcoins. But it's very difficult to do completely. And I would say that even if you were to if you thought that you were making all your Bitcoins completely anonymous and the government was onto you and was looking at you, they would still be able to find your transactions, find your Bitcoin, and come after you for anything from money laundering to tax evasion. So, but of course, they have to know that you have Bitcoin, and they have to be watching you specifically to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. That's good.
Yeah. Was that clear enough?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my general, when I looked into this stuff, and obviously you know more about the technicalities, but I kind of thought it's not like some group can be funding somebody completely anonymously, and if the FBI spends 2 years studying it, that they're going to have no clue what's going on. Like if they're watching individuals and know everything about, they're going to, because there's a one person in the network breaks and confesses, then they know one side of those transactions, and they can put 2 and 2 together. But in terms of just being able to stamp it out, like you said, as more and more people around the world are just using it as a backup asset in case their money crashes, after they're not going to be able to stop people from doing that.
Mm-hmm. So, and like I said, Dark Wallet, it's in alpha version 4, and beta is coming out pretty soon, and that's just going to be one more layer of protection from people who do want to protect their financial privacy and their financial wealth from the mafia.
I would recommend that you guys check out MadeSafe. And then there's some other ones that are kind of like competing with that, but they're basically like, I don't know. I'm not even trying to explain MadeSafe. I tried earlier today and I butchered it. But if people go to madesafe.net, they're doing a lot of different things to kind of protect anonymity in the future and just provide people with the most secure internet that they've ever seen. So, I don't know. I was talking with one of the founders of the project today, and those guys are cool. They got some really good stuff going on. So we won't be at the mercy of the spies forever.
Right, yeah, that's my feeling too, that it's a kind of, with any technology or whatever it is, I mean, even if we found out a way that we could, beam ourselves physically to another continent, I mean, eventually the government, if you were the most wanted person on Earth, the government might be able to catch you. But if everybody's using it, they can't keep track of everybody. I think it's the same kind of thing that, if you're FBI's top 10 most wanted, they're going to figure, you're going to slip something, or people in your network are going to slip up, but the average person's going to have just a quantum leap improvement in financial privacy as more people embrace this and people figure out ways to harden the network.
Cool.
So
all right,
I'd like to throw out a business idea that I've been talking about for a little bit. Hopefully somebody will pick it up and do it. There's a market assassination website, and it's more of a market prediction of when people are going to die, and it's essentially turned into a market assassination website. And of course, the #1 person on there is Ben Bernanke. So what I'd like to propose is the opposite and make it more of a positive thing and create a market rescue company, a company that protects large holders of cryptocurrencies from political attack, from cyber attack. So basically provide insurance to protect an individual's cryptocurrency physically and on the internet. So if somebody who owns billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency in the future gets arrested by a government for political reasons, the company will go and rescue them. I would like to propose that as a future business plan.
Well, I think that that's going to happen. I mean, there was some sort of relatively bogus death scare, I think it was on Roger Ver or whatever. So I think people are realizing that some of the big Bitcoin holders are vulnerable. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And provide cyber and physical security.
See, look, we're creating jobs with Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome, Obama.
But Stephen, how would that work? Like, in other words, like a random person. I mean, it wouldn't just be that those people would pay for an insurance policy. You're thinking of something else that's more distributed and like crowdfunded?
No, so it would be, so the clients would be the cryptocurrency holders. So somebody, if you think about what Bitcoin could potentially be. And with using today's dollars, there is a Bitcoin trillionaire out there. And as Bitcoin becomes more and more popular, more and more people are going to want his money or their money. And so they need protection. And I think that some of the biggest protection they'll need is political protection. Because I think that one of the biggest enemies of cryptocurrency is government.
You just said something. Did I understand you right that you said there's someone right now, we don't know who, there's a Bitcoin account that has more than $1 trillion?
No. Oh, sorry. So there's some. So I think that the first trillionaire in today's terms is going to be someone who has Bitcoin.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because I was just doing math.
So they're not a trillionaire today.
Right.
They will become a trillionaire as Bitcoin continues its hyper-deflation.
Yep, I got it.
I like to say Bitcoin's going to hyper-deflate until the dollar hyper-inflates. So I think that there are people out there that are holding Bitcoin that one day are going to be worth billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, and they're going to be targets. So I think they're going to want insurance and security and protection.
Can you imagine that the poor bastard who's going to be holding Tatiana Coin when he breaks $1 trillion mark? It's...
All right, guys. I think it's time to put this wonderful chit chat to an end. I have another meeting at 10 o'clock. Apparently, this is just back-to-back action all night long.
Fun.
Thank you both so much for talking with me, and I don't know, I think that people in the audience will have learned something from this conversation, maybe something a little bit different. Please tell people where they can find you online and they can keep up with your adventures, gentlemen.
Sure. So go to Consulting by RPM. So consultingbyrpm.com. That's my blog.
Yeah, and amagimetals.com, AMAGI metals.com, and you can get updates. You can get text messages when Bitcoin passes a certain price or gold passes a certain price. So check out the website and the market alerts.
Excellent. All right, everybody. Thanks, everybody. I'm Tatiana from Tatiana Coin. Don't forget to buy your Tatiana coins right away, and we'll stay on top of the pages, and you'll know all the activities. I'll see everybody. DC Bitcoin in the Beltway, Porcfest, National Libertarian Party Convention. It's going to be a Bitcoin bonanza, and freedom too. So thanks, everybody. Take care.
Nightofclarity.com for Tatiana in Nashville.
Oh yeah, that's going to be good. I can't wait. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.